to another episode of the Garage Strength Podcast. Actually, with this, my goal was to try and I wanted to like pitch my idea.
We only have 25 minutes.
I wanted to try and pitch our idea of quantifying training.
Oh, this is the Garage Strength Podcast with Dane Miller and Earl Kunkel.
Yeah, exactly.
He went to his thought
to try and. Okay, so Yvonne pitched a really good question.
We're talking about training to get from point A to point B.
Correct.
Is the gist of it.
And we've done a pretty good job of laying out like benchmarks and levels of where you're at.
So like if you're in peak strength, you test the first week.
Yes. And you
on
know
specific things, and you basically set your baseline, and like your test then informs what you need to improve on, and like the exercises will get you there. So when you test again, you get here. But what Dane is going to talk about and like dive into is like, well, I want my 100 kilo snatch to be 150 kilo snatch. How many reps and sets do I need to get at this weight? How many times do I have to be able to work singles at this weight? Or a bench press? Like I want a 500 pound bench. How many times in your life will you have to bench 405 pounds before 500
That's the big
is
one.
in your ballpark? Like,
so that was the big one that I had a lot of conversation with Alex about, with Sam about, with Jason.
We could ask Taman because he's bench 500.
And it goes down to how can we make this as simple for people to understand? And this all goes back to that question that Yvonne had when parents come in and they're saying like, all right, well, how long, what can I expect from my athlete? And what's interesting is that I started to think about it. And I'm going, I was thinking about Jaime. I'm like, how many throws does Jaime need at 65 to 68 meters to throw 70? Okay, so Jaime's thrown 73. She's actually the 9th best discus thrower in the history of the world. But outside of that, let's say quantifying that to tell her, okay, we need this many throws for this to happen. We need this many reps on the bench press. And so then I can say, so I'm talking to Taman, to Sam, to Alex. I'm going, okay.
These are all people who bench 500 pounds too, right?
Yeah, using the bench press of 500 pounds. Okay, so you need about 1,000 reps at 405 plus to get to a 500-pound bench. And obviously there's going to be some people that react quicker, some people that react slower, but you can quantify that. And then you can say, okay, so if I bench 405,
she's like 184, 185.
For the first time, it might be like 5 or 6 months when you first get over 400, that in those first 5 or 6 months, you might only bench it like 8 to 10 times. So you're looking at like 6 months of only benching it like 8 to 10 times. Then the next 6 to 8 months, you might bench it because you're starting to make adaptations, you're starting to get stronger. And if you're staying healthy, you might have another 6 to 8 months where you're able to bench it probably about 5 times that. So let's say like 50 times. Okay, so now
and this isn't in one day or one session. This is over
the
a period. Like,
so now you're
all of a sudden now instead of a single, you reach and hit a triple for it's your new triple.
So
PR
now your bench goes to 405 to 430. So I was laying out these points, 430 to 450 to 475 to 500, and when you start to look at it, to make that jump could be anywhere from like 2 to 4 years for some people, like, and maybe even longer. So now you're looking at about 1,000 reps, but you're quantifying that. And then when the athlete can see that and be like, all right, so if this is a quantification, so then I started to think about it like, what does it take to go from a 500 to a 600 pound back squat? What does it take to go from, a clean of 100 kilos to 150 kilos? What needs to happen? And when you start to look at sports like track, and swimming does this quite well, when they look at these very specific distances. So you watch, like in distance, you could train the Norwegian method, which is essentially like, you've got to run really, really hard hills once a week. You've got to get a decent amount of volume 3 to 4 days a week. And then you have to have one day that you train at your threshold, which is like a 60 to 90 minute run right around where
this is endurance work.
Yeah. Cole Hockle, who just won the 15, doesn't do as much high intensity work, but he does a lot of runs around threshold. So it's a little different from what the Norwegian system is, but it's basically one of those two. Okay, well, you have to have X amount of minutes at threshold here to then make the jump to the next level for your improvement. You have to be able to run, using an example of a marathon, if I want to run a 4-hour marathon, I need to first make sure I can run a half marathon at sub 2 hours. Well, that's 850 miles. Okay, well, then I have to be able to run 6 miles at 850 clips to then build into that. So you have like these building points that are so clear that we ignore in the weight room, but the speed world deals with it in sprinting. You can break down sprints really sort of, I don't want to say elegantly, but elegantly, like breaking down the
like
phases.
a biomechanist.
Yeah, phasing it down.
I believe they have a name.
Yeah, exactly. But we don't do that for weights. Like Lincoln front squatted 80 kilos for 3. Okay, so when should he be able to clean that? Well, if he front squats 80 for 5, he probably would be pretty close. He front squatted 80 for 4, and he cleaned 74. So it's pretty close. Well, how many more reps will he need? He'll probably need to hit 80 kilos for another 30 reps, which is not that much, but it is at the same time.
Yeah, that could be a day of training.
It could be a day of training, or for a kid who's in middle school, who's in 7th grade,
a month.
It could be a month
2
and
months.
a half. Yeah. So now you're quantifying it, and then you're able to tell the parent, based off of the benchmarks of an elite athlete, based off of where they're at, what's the quantification, the time, the reps, the amount of workouts, and you can quantify those specific things to get to certain points. And then we can look at it. That individual will then have ratios established based off of their jumps versus their speed versus their strength.
It makes me think of when I'm playing Elden Ring and I have to get like runes or something like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, hey, you need, and so as you level up, like it's farther, you need more and more runes to get a level, right?
Yeah.
But you
is this similar to me? It's similar to Zelda.
Oh yeah,
because Sanderson and Lincoln have been destroying Legend of Zelda.
It's very similar.
And watching it, and when you've talked about this, I'd be like, wow, this is pretty similar.
Elden Ring's the adult version of Zelda.
Okay.
Easiest way to put it.
Okay.
It's the more. I'm not saying Zelda's not for adults, but Elden Ring is not for children.
Yeah. Okay.
Like that's the easiest way to put it.
Okay.
Like, yeah, and you level up, right? You level up stuff, but like as you level up, the bosses get harder, the weights get heavier.
Yeah.
But it's like relatively, then you still need the same. It's just you got to beat someone more challenging. Go heavier, get more reps at it. So like I recently PR'd my Elden Ring, like all Remembrance Major Bosses Run DLC included, by like 3 hours the last time I'd like been playing through the game.
What are the packs, by the way? Because Alex brought his Switch or something, and he was talking about some packs in this. And
packs, what? I don't.
There was something that he has to like almost cheat the game that he and Rudy were talking about. They were playing at the Olympics.
Oh, I don't play the Switch. My son Reese uses it for
Is there some other way to play? Maybe it wasn't on Switch. I don't. They were talking. Alex was talking about it for quite a while.
I know they have on, like, if you play on Steam, they use like
the Steam packs.
Yeah. I have a Steam Deck.
Oh, Steam Deck. Yeah.
Which is awesome. But like you can get, they call them, it's basically like if you're old like us, like a Game Genie.
Yeah.
But it's like a cheat. It's a cheat engine is what they can be, and they're actually really cool. So like the Elden Ring cheat engine, the way I've seen it is it will show the hitboxes. So like the boss like swings and it will like have like this yellow net.
Yeah.
And like that's where it can hit. So you can basically learn where the iframe, like how to time the iframes to learn how to fight the boss.
Yeah.
And then also too, you can set it so like you don't die. So you can get like infinite reps.
Okay.
Instead of having to like do the run back and do it again and like.
So then you get more reps. That makes it easier to.
Same concept here, right?
Yeah,
like the more reps you get at these things, the better you get.
I think where we've always struggled and where a lot of this also stems from was before the discus final, I had a talk with Ryan Krauser. He was a 3-time Olympic champ.
You are so small next to him, dude, in that picture.
Huge. But he was talking about marks with specific shots. And he's like, I know if I throw 22 meters with this shot, this will happen with my comp shot. And I was asking him a million questions and then writing notes, just because he's the greatest ever in the sport. He's the Michael Jordan of throwing. It's valuable.
Shot putting.
Yeah, shot putting. And so for me, when I heard him talking about some of what he does with number of reps with certain implements and what he does with distances as well, we know that, like, okay, if you have a kid, let's say you have a kid who weighs 200 pounds, if he can front squat 400 pounds, his vertical is very likely going to be 35 to 40 inches. Like, I would put money down on this. Okay. And like, if you can do double 2.5 times body weight. So someone like Evan he has front squatted 150 kilos and he's got a 42-inch vert. You know, like, you can see some very, very clear correlations between weights and ratios and movement patterns. And to me, a lot of strength coaches know this, but no one's ever set out and said, like, okay, how do we make this path even easier? We know to achieve this end product, it gets this end product, but we don't know how many reps.
It's too often people have kids come in or athletes come in who can do it versus having kids who come in and work to being able to do it.
I think that
so, and they
don't know.
I know there's this one study you want to talk about that's like the nature nurture type of thing.
Yeah.
And it can ring of that sometimes. Like, people don't recognize the work.
Yeah.
The talent has put in sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, I get it. Like, Kobe was talented, but Kobe
put in a lot
of work too. Like, Ryan Krauser is talented, puts in a lot of work too. And like, sometimes we discount talent's work ethic and overrepresent their results.
Yes.
And I don't know. That's just maybe a soapbox of mine. Like,
yeah, but I think but
at the same time, like, people who aren't as good can work and get there too.
Yeah.
At some point, if you're willing to invest. And I think this is what you're talking about too. Like, I can lay a roadmap out for an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old or a 14-year-old through these numbers, through these quantifications to say, like, here's the path to be able to do this.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is like, you lay it out, and then the longer they train, the more precise the path gets.
Yeah.
I can look at, using Evan, I can look at Evan and be like, okay, well, right now.
Hardest working front desk worker.
Exactly. I know his best back squat's 175. I know his best clean is 145 off of a box. I know his best clean off the floor is 140. I know his best snatch is like 115 to 120. Okay. His best power clean is 122. His best clean from the floor is 140. His best power clean, so his best power clean to back squat is 70%. Okay. This is pretty close to Jake. If we can push Evan's back squat higher and focus a lot of effort on his back squat, we should see that back squat increase. We don't have to put in any effort to his power clean, and his clean will also increase because that's where we need to make up ground. But now you're looking at it, you're saying, okay, so if we can on a weekly basis have him get anywhere from 40 to 60 reps in the back squat, now I can lay that out and be like, okay, Evan, for you to back squat 190, you're going to need about 800 reps on the back squat over 160 kilos.
So doing that, what comes away then? Like, does he lose reps in his cleans to get more of that? Like, this is probably a more higher level.
Yeah, you would lose a little bit, but it wouldn't matter because the strength.
So like, if I'm programming and
his power is so explosive, it doesn't matter.
Okay.
Yeah, you would lose some reps in the cleans. Yes.
All right. And I don't know. That was probably a little off, but
that's like the whole goal then is like, because it'd be the same thing if you have somebody who comes in and you test them in the 40 and you're going like, well, your 40 is a lot slower than your back squat is compared to strength.
Yeah.
Well, then one of those has to budge a little bit, and we need to focus on your 40.
Yeah. So
and your strength can stay where it's at.
Your 40's
or
slow,
vice versa.
But your first 10 yards is somehow blazing fast.
Yeah.
And your lifts are fast. All right. We're not worrying about your cleans and your back squats as much.
Yeah.
You're still going to do it. Like,
it's not as much of a priority. Yeah. And then you can specify what is needed and within reason. This formula and these ratios are never going to be perfect, but they're going to provide a realistic perspective for the athlete to execute. And I think that's the most important thing for them to comprehend long-term progression. Is like it makes it more realistic. Because then you don't have a kid who's in 9th grade and saying, like, he wants to go be the next Aaron Donald, and you're like, dude, you can't even back squat 100 kilos. Like, that's not going to happen. But you can be the best Aaron Donald.
You can use data to support why, like, maybe this isn't going to happen.
Yeah, but you can do it.
You can crush kids' dreams with data.
That's terrible. But
I know.
It's sort of true, though. But also you can provide a reality of, like, look, maybe the NFL is not for you right now, but let's think about first making it to those D3 levels or starting in varsity.
Here are the steps you can take to
get there.
To try to reach there.
Yeah, exactly. Making it a more realistic progression to get to that point instead of jumping all the way there. I think that's the way that's what it provides.
Yeah. I hear you on that.
With doing that, it's been working backwards from like that elite group because I think they're going to be the ones that are going to have way more
where the
reps.
end the end range can be,
and then you come backwards.
Yeah. And
obviously there's going to be more standard deviation for a younger athlete.
Well, yeah, cuz everyone comes out, I shouldn't say everyone, but most babies come out and they can't walk.
Yeah.
Except for my brother. He claims to be a walking prodigy. He says he was walking at 6 months.
Get out of here.
He wasn't. It's just a joke between the two of us.
Yeah. Maybe he was.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody walking before like 9 months.
Oh. Well, maybe. Depends on how
that has nothing to do with this conversation.
Yeah,
but
depends on how athletic they are as a child.
You know, isn't it funny though with parents, like they like purposely like, yeah, my kid walked at 10 and a half. Well, my kid walked at 10 and a third. It's like,
I've never seen someone get in like a measuring contest over how fast they walk.
Yeah, it's just like always like walking. And it's like,
I just
my
think
kid
it's
crawled
funny.
at 4 months. Cool.
Yeah.
I don't care.
It's almost like, and there's studies on this too around like, oh, my kid was reading at this age versus that age. And it's like, well, if they're reading by 7, they're fine.
Yeah, exactly. I think everything's going to work out.
Yeah, they'll be fine. Well, no, they done studies by like 12 and 13. They caught up to the kid that was reading at like 3 or 4. Like
it's okay.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be okay.
It'll be all right. That's like, I love, this is a funny story. My, one of my children was put in like the lower reading class in 1st grade and like basically got extra support with things.
And so then they just blew up. They're like, oh,
they
sweet.
did. And like, I'm talking like my kids take like honors. Like my oldest daughter is like an engineer. Like they do fine with school. They work hard, but like school comes and it's like, I can figure this out too.
Yeah.
But also like they put in the work. And I just always think that's so funny that like in 1st grade, they're like worried about this. I'm like, she's 7, 6.
Yeah. It's like,
I think she was 6. I'm like, she's 6. Like, all right, the world, like,
it's going to be all right.
We'll be fine. Like, I'm more worried about like 24, 30,
making
40, like 6 years old.
Trying to
the reading's not there yet.
Yeah, but I think that's also funny because then it's like, oh, well, let's give them more attention. And then it works. And it's like, why don't we do that to more kids?
Resources.
Well, yeah.
Too much flat taxes.
That's funny. Yeah.
Full circle.
Yeah, exactly. So going back to it's like how many. The biggest project for me is when I'm meeting with Taman Legend and to start thinking this way. And to start thinking about it even with the throwing world and then how we can break this down and make it easier for the sprints, for the lifts, for the endurance stuff so that it's very, very clearly laid out over. And it's going to be a big effort that takes a long time, but I think it could offer a lot of value to everybody in our system and outside of it as well.
You're going to need some of that Trevor data analytics sheet there, collecting all of it and feeding it. And then you're going to have to go and upload it all in there too. I don't know how well that's going to go.
That's going to be terrible. I know how well it's going to go.
I didn't want to say it out loud.
I know how.
I'll let you self-deprecate.
Yeah, I know that very well. That's why I'd have to pay somebody to do it. So head over to peakstrength.app, the Google Play Store.
Oh, we got audience questions.
Okay.
We got 2 of them.
Oh, I didn't realize we still have time too.
Oh yeah, dude, don't mess. All right. Want to see stuff?
They should still go to peakstrength.app and download.
Yeah, no, they should, and they should go and like give us good reviews too on.
Dude, the reviews are sick. Yeah,
with the app, with the podcast, like download, listen. YouTube, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Trying to get to 1 million.
Yes,
like
100%.
We're almost at 600,000.
Yeah, that's closing in quicker.
Yeah, All right, want to see stuff? This is from Reddit. Hi, I just bought and watched the GSPD course and got the parabolic periodization ebook to learn more about the GS programming approach. While it does a great job explaining the general structure in regards to the yearly cycle, different blocks, and weekly structure, I'm still a bit confused when it comes to week-to-week load choices. Sounds like they want to know about static and ramping.
Yes.
I understand that intensity is regulated by the set and rep choices in combination with ramping and static weeks. Does that mean that the last ramping set is always supposed to be at max effort, i.e. RP 9 or 10? So far, I searched the blog and listened to quite a few podcast episodes, but couldn't find an answer. Here it comes.
That's a good question.
So I know what my thought is.
Well, you give your thought.
Athlete typing can play a huge role.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
if you're a type 3, like it's going to be a 9-10 almost.
Yeah.
You have to govern them. If it's a type 2, it depends on the day.
Yeah.
They probably want to go for broke to like prove it to themselves. If it's a type 1, they'll do essentially what they're told to do with it. Like,
I also so on top of that, I would argue it would really be dependent upon what phase you're in, because you want to make sure that, let's say, if it's a weightlifter, for example.
Well, parabolic periodization is
all weightlifting.
Yeah.
Like, so if we have a weightlifter, like, we don't want them dying on back squats 3 days a week so that they can barely lift other days. Like, we want to make sure that they can handle the volume of other days. I would argue, I think that this is actually interesting because I've been on this kick. Actually, ironically, filmed a video during Yaime's session because I yelled at Yaime for how she was throwing, and I wanted her to throw easier today because I wanted her to throw really far tomorrow. And I was telling her how we're periodizing the throws going into her last meet on the year. And then I was laying that out. I made a whole video on Throws U for this where it's like throwing hard versus drilling versus like static type throwing. And to me, it's like it's really this interplay that I think we could do a better job fleshing out. I think we have an idea internally, and I think we apply it internally with a pretty damn good idea. But we don't do a good job of educating people, including our own trainers to a point. So I think that there's more to draw out from that. But I do think there's like weeks where it's better to just get a lot of volume at a specific intensity.
So more of the static type stuff.
And then the other weeks it's like, day to day, like there's some days that you might want to prioritize and clarify the priority of being like, all right, let's push a back squat now because it's exposure phase or its comprehension phase versus at the end of a program with weightlifters, like, all right, let's push a snatch or a clean jerk. So it would be dependent on that.
As an athlete in the system too, as a master's athlete too, not even a young kid athlete, week 1 was always, especially when you start out, was just try to establish numbers to
go off of. Yeah.
And then I personally thought I always got stronger in a static week and like to work as close to the top end as possible.
Yeah, and you just keep repeating.
Yeah, it especially because personal thing is I think weightlifting's more a rhythmic thing than it is an actual like how strong you are thing. Because I know there was plenty of people much stronger than me just based off what they could squat and things of that nature. And if I could hammer in the lifts that mattered more, and just could find the rhythm. I know one of the things Dane likes to program is like a 7x1 on the minute towards like when you're supposed to be peaking. I always felt that was the most informative of like, am I prepped or not? Like,
dude, Anna just did that on Friday. She did that at 98 kilos, hits all of them, and it's like she's got a meet on Saturday. It's this Saturday. It's like, Anna, you're in freaking really, really good shape. You just hit probably maybe your opener for 7 singles.
Yeah, we're
6
essentially,
singles?
and if you're working in an opener, like you're over 95%.
100%. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
and so to that question, like when you're summit like phase, when hey, the next thing is realization and here's the competition, like you're working incredibly heavy there.
Right.
Like, but it shouldn't necessarily feel like a stress at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
I shouldn't say it shouldn't feel like a stress. It's like
it shouldn't be murdering you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
But always too, heavier is better. But
yeah.
like you'll get more reps at 405 when you want that 500-pound bench type of thing.
Yeah, if you're doing 5x5 at 405, you're probably going to bench 465.
But that's also the auto regulation. Like that day you don't have it. Like you don't have it.
Yeah,
move on.
Deal with it. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Your life's not over.
Or just hit it once and then be like, all right, that was good enough.
Yeah.
Those 8 other misses count as pulls.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What's the other question?
Oh, the other one. This is from Keist. Discord. Should S&C coaches make an effort to actually do the sport before starting to make S&C programming for the sport? Or at least do a similar sport to feel and understand the physical demands? Ooh, this one's a hot button one, I think.
Well, I don't think you have to do the sport, but I think you have to have respect for what they're doing, and I think that you've got to spend a lot of time talking with them. And like, I remember working with Margot Gear about swimming, and a lot of that work that I did with her, I would spend time like, Margot, how do you feel after you do these pool workouts? How do you feel, recovery wise? How do you handle this? And that's, now I did swim when I was younger till I was like 14. So I had an idea, but like, dude, I didn't swim anywhere close to like that super world-class level. So I think like, to answer Keith's question, I don't think you have to, but I think you have to pay a lot of respect to the sport. You should try certain things. You should see how you feel after them. And you should understand like how long it takes to recover from specific sport workouts and specific supplemental workouts. Because I think if you're not respecting the effort and respecting the time that it takes to recover, then you're going to end up programming things that are just not effective. So understand the algorithm, understand the quantification, help younger athletes and older athletes do that. And then in turn, as a coach, respect that and continue to work forward. And also head over to peakstrength.app, download Peak Strength, start getting faster, start getting stronger, improve your endurance, and improve your explosiveness. And until next time, peace.